I guess what you need to know is I'm a physiotherapist by background. So I worked for the first 20 years as a physiotherapist in Sydney Spinal Unit. So I have a very strong clinical background about physiotherapy management of people's spinal cord injuries. In 2004, so that's about 12 years ago, I moved across to my current academic position with the University of Sydney. And so for the last 10, 12 years, what I've been doing primarily, I supervise PhD students and master's students. I'm very involved in education and training, so at an undergraduate and postgraduate level, so not just research education, but also undergraduate teaching people about physio management spinal cord injuries. And of course, I have my own research program that I run, and primarily around physiotherapy management spinal cord injuries. In terms of my research in spinal cord injuries, I suppose if I had to summarise it, it's primarily about looking at the effectiveness of different physiotherapy interventions for people's spinal cord injuries. So we run primarily clinical trials, run them through the spinal units in Sydney and increasingly more so involving other spinal units, both Australia and elsewhere. And we really we look at what physiotherapists are often doing, the sort of treatments they're applying, and we put them to the test within simple randomised controlled trials to determine which of these treatments are effective and perhaps which ones are not. So it's all about building an evidence base for physiotherapy management for people's spinal cord injuries. One of our key questions is around strength training. So when you think about people with spinal cord injuries, their paralysis is something that everyone sort of instantly recognises. So what people mightn't realise is that when you have a spinal cord injury, you quite often also have a lot of muscles that are partially paralysed, so they're very, very weak. So physiotherapists spend a lot of time trying to strengthen these muscles, and there's whole lots of different interventions. So at the moment, one of our key focuses is looking at the relative effectiveness of different approaches to increase strength in partially paralysed muscles. We being a colleague of mine, Joe Vinsky, have run 2 MOOCs. These are massive open online courses, and these are for physiotherapists and physiotherapy students to try and teach them about physiotherapy management of spinal cord injuries. So we've had a big interest in education for a long time. So the first MOOC that we ran was 2 years ago, and we thought maybe 80 people would join our MOOC, and so we were really amazed when we got 3,000 people. But we ran it again just recently, and this time we had to close registration after 10,000 people because we couldn't cope anymore. So, I think what this tells you is if you can get out and reach people, that there's a huge interest in learning, and there's obviously a huge interest in physiotherapists and physiotherapy students to learn about how they can better treat people's spinal cord injuries. And what was particularly amazing about this was these 10,000 people were from countries everywhere. And so we had people from Afghanistan, Senegal, Africa, countries in South America, absolutely everywhere. So it really spoke to our ability to reach out and hopefully impact on ultimately care of people's spinal cord injuries. That's really what it's all about, to try and improve the care against lives of people with spinal cord injuries, not just here in Australia, but in countries everywhere around the world. And I guess, that's what's so good about a MOOC, because it's really sort of a form of, I guess, social justice, if you want to call it that, because, a lot of countries around the world, they just don't have the teachers with expertise in spinal cord injuries. And so I guess that's what's amazing about the web, isn't it? That you put together programs that anyone from anywhere can join and learn about things. It's a real equaliser in health and education. Part of the success of MOOC, or of any MOOC really, is engaging people. So I think you've got to pay particular attention to how you maintain people's interest, and that really is one of the potential beauties of a MOOC, because you can put any amount of educational resources on the web, but are people going to actually access it? And are they going to move through it? And are they going to engage with it? So it's one thing to develop the learning content, but it's quite another thing about how you actually engage people and get them motivated to move through it and, you know, to learn. And so what we ran with our MOOC was a closed Facebook page. So this was just for the 10,000 people that were on the course. They joined our Facebook page. And so every week we would pose 3 or 4 questions, and we, Joe Grinsky and I, would, you know, respond and engage with everyone through the Facebook. And, you know, it was a huge job. This was really a 24/7 job for the 4 weeks that we ran it, because what you had to do was, you know, you had to have a presence. And the feedback that we got was that people actually really enjoyed the opportunity of linking up with other physios from other countries. So our students here at Sydney University, they really enjoyed the ability to speak with physiotherapy students from Bangladesh, from, you know, Africa. And of course the problems are very, very different, but it's wonderful for our students to be exposed at a very personal level to what some of the problems are in other countries. And I'm sure the physios and physiotherapist students from the other countries enjoyed speaking to our students too. So it really was a very nice learning opportunity, and I like to think that it really broadened everyone's perspectives and, you know, made them appreciate what the problems are in lots of other countries. Yeah, well, I think one of the challenges is not just putting together these courses and running them, but of course reaching out to people and making people aware of it. There's so much competition on the web for people's attention. So, you know, I think when I think back, you know, why was it that we were able to reach 10,000 people, possibly more, if we kept registration open? And that didn't just sort of happen overnight. You know, we'd spent a long time building up networks and connections with people in all these different countries with spinal cord injuries. And really it goes right back more than 5-7 years ago, when a colleague and I set up what's called International Network of Spinal Cord Injury Physiotherapists. And at that time, we spent a lot of time and effort trying to identify all the physiotherapists in all the different countries around the world, because, you know, we saw that there was a real need, if we wanted to communicate about these sorts of initiatives, to be able to speak to all these people. And so we spent a lot of time doing that. And also, you know, I'm very involved in the International Spinal Cord Society, and that has a big drive and a big interest in education and reaching out to people. So through our various connections, you know, we were able to run a fairly comprehensive social media campaign to ensure that we reached out to everyone everywhere. Well, we did evaluate the course. I mean, Joe and I, we're academics, we're researchers, and we're very aware of the need to objectively measure what you do and make sure that it really is doing what you assume it's doing. So we had a somewhat standard way of assessing participants. So we assess them when they started the course, and we assess them at the end of the course. And in actual fact, we ran a randomised controlled trial within the week. So we liaised with our colleagues from a university in Bangladesh, and we randomised some of the students, physiotherapy students from Bangladesh, to either our MOOC or not to our MOOC. And so I thought it was sort of a really nice way that we could mould or blend our interest in research and academia with our interest in education. To, you know, within the randomised controlled trial, we were primarily looking at evaluating the effectiveness of improving people's education and knowledge in the physiomanageable spinal cord injuries. But of course, we also had, you know, feedback at the end of the course, and we had a huge amount of feedback. Just huge. We were swamped, and it was lovely feedback. You know, people really, really valued it, and that's sort of one of Joe and my delights really with our work, is that we could do that, because the feedback was so positive and nice, and people really valued it. You know. a nice start forward. Okay, what is the main problem facing people's spinal cord injuries globally? Well, of course, the big problem is paralysis and the consequences of that, but if we ignore that for a moment, that will tie up with cure and recovery. But if we just look at the current status, if you had to put on your big picture hat, so to speak, I think you'd have to say that there's two things that come to mind, and I can't think which one's more important, but pressure ulcers, something as mundane as pressure ulcers. So when you get a spinal cord injury, you can't feel, you can't move, and what people mightn't realise is that if you sit on your butt for long periods of time, you don't move, the blood supply actually gets cut off, and your skin starts to break down, and you get terrible sores. And that is the number one problem. So not so much here in Australia, but in all the low and middle income countries, people's spinal cord injuries are dying from pressure ulcers. So if we could find a solution to that, it would make a really big difference. And then if you have to say something else, I can't help myself, but the other thing I would say is actually societal attitudes to disability. And if we could lift people's understanding, not society's understanding of disability, then I think we'd make a really big difference to the lives of people's spinal cord injuries. And again, I'm not so much talking about here where society's attitudes to disability are fairly positive, but I'm talking about our neighbouring countries. We need to do a lot of work in lifting people's understanding of disabilities and what people with disabilities, what their potential is and what they can do. Yeah, I suppose what's a defining moment, I guess, can tell you defining. What have I done that I think has had the biggest impact on clinical practice, if I interpret the question that way? I think the thing that I've done that's had the biggest impact on clinical practice would be the textbook I wrote for physiotherapy students. So I wrote a textbook about physiotherapy management, spinal cord injury, a textbook for students. And I really think if you can influence students, get them while they're still forming their opinions, I think it's much, much easier to change clinical practice than trying to change clinicians who have been doing things a